back, and we're at Titus in Maryland. They're about 40 minutes from MIR.
Yep.
We met them at PRI. We've been talking to them for the last several years. Make a lot of
people.
Yeah, they're 4 people. They make a lot of Cleveland stuff. I haven't been blessed with the opportunity yet to run Cleveland stuff because, you know, my stuff is hand-me-down or slowly change it as we get through, but always been something we think about because Serious Power, really cool. One of the only American-made Cleveland blocks.
Right
out
now,
there.
we are the only
one?
produced one in America. But yeah, Cleveland is, we've done Cleveland engines for many, many years. So we, about 13 years ago, we decided to make our own block. And business kind of grew around that block, and we actually ended up naming our business after the block. So
Yeah.
before we were different name, but now we're Titus Performance. So
It's a cool name.
yeah.
And again, it's something that needed to be done. We just outpowered that block like probably 2 days after 4.
And that's what,
we did.
like, is that what, like, pulled you to it? Like, that's, like, we always have, like, a love for Cleveland?
Well, the first engine that I ever built was a 351 Cleveland. My brother is 8 years older than I am, and he was 20, and I was in my early, I don't even think I was a teenager yet,
Yeah.
and built my first 351 Cleveland. So it was just an engine that, you know, back then street racing was about the only place that you raced, and it was just an engine that
It got it done.
Made
it
power.
did it made believers out of a lot of big blocks, especially some other small blocks from other brands, and it was just an engine that I really,
Just pulls your heartstrings.
it's sort of like, you know,
Attached to
your first love. So it's one of those things that you just don't get away from.
And again, that was the time when nobody wanted the 351 Windsor.
Well, the 351 Windsor had just such a restricted cylinder head, and you know, it was, to me, it was like a school bus engine compared to a Cleveland, which was a car engine. So.
Yeah.
Cleveland only lasted a few years, though, right?
In the United States, it went from 70 to 73 was the production years that actually ended up in cars. Now, the platform went on further with the 351M and the 400, but in Australia, I believe the Cleveland went all the way up to like 83 or 84 in
They're
Australia.
big dorks.
Well, there's, they love their Clevelands as well. So.
They just put their steering wheel in the wrong spot.
Well, it's tough to get headers.
Yeah, thanks for having us and showing us around.
Sure. Market with this is you just don't buy, open the catalog and go, here's a block, and everybody gets the same block. I mean, you can do it that way, but we can do different options on it. Like if you look at our block order form, we have different lifter bank angles. We can run these at different lifter bank angles, different deck heights. Cam journal diameters, we can do those in several different cam journal diameters. So really, what we're doing is in our I looked at that thing, I got out of breath.
Yeah, he carried it. He carried it 2 feet.
But what we're doing is you fill out the sheet and you can get really the block that you really want. So if an engine builder is pretty savvy, he knows kind of what he wants as far as the reason why he wants different lifter bank angles and things like that. We'd basically do that rather than him having to buy a block that's already done and try to figure out how to change it. So we can pretty much optimize the block however somebody wants it, right from the manufacturing part of it to begin with.
So I'm assuming too that right now it's going to be set up like a Ford lifter, but then again you can modify it to take a larger lifter.
Yeah, right now this one is
Without
actually
them
set up.
going to somebody and having them do
Correct.
it and possibly
Yeah, you
not
can-
have the jigging for it.
Right, you can get the correct diameter you're looking for right now. I mean, we do these, standard 875. We can do them right, the lifters right in the loader block. So we can do this style of bushing in 875. We can do it in 904. We also do 937. We can put bushings in it for a keyway lifter. And we're even doing one project right now where we're doing what's called a wheel guided lifter. That's a really big style bushing, and it doesn't have a keyway or anything with bushing, but it has basically 2 slots. And the wheel is so big in the lifter that the wheel is bigger than the body of the lifter, so the wheel actually goes down in those 2 slots and it actually keeps the wheel from turning sideways. So
Approximately, how much does it weigh?
The block itself, with the billet main caps and everything on it, is about 115 pounds. I think this one,
It's gonna show off.
that one feels like it weighs 114 and a half.
Yeah, which is 100 pounds lighter than our 8.2 deck now. Kind of amazing, you know, 100 pounds lighter than my thing.
Yes, this is 100 pounds lighter than what we have in my car right now.
Yep. But another thing, like you see, this one is not drilled for a distributor. So this engine will be used with a VFI, so it'll be coil gear plug. So what we do with this, as you can see, it's not just drilled down here for the distributor or anything at all. So what we do here is we use this for the crankcase ventilation for your vacuum pump. And this one will have a belt drive on it, so the belt drive case actually keeps this area pretty dry behind. There's not a lot of oil up in here, so it really gives a good place to actually pull the, and the reason we don't drill through and put where the distributor would normally be is that way the cam is not kicking up oil right into the bottom of the vacuum port. You can run additional head bolts. This one's done for 14 head bolts, so you have your external bolts out here. You can add them here if you have a cylinder head casting that so has those on it. Whenever we have on a 10 head bolt block with all brands of blocks, we've never really ever pushed a head gasket up here. It's always pretty much down here. So that's why we do our cylinder head with 4 extra bolt holes in it. We could probably, I think, with a little bit of design change in our tooling, we could probably do the in our cylinder head, put the bolts down through the top. The early Edelbrock castings, the SC1s had the provision where you could machine that head for a bolt down through the intake port.
Now, your deck thickness, how thick is the deck too, so?
The deck on a 9.2 deck is it's about 750 thousandths on a
Okay, so you've
9.2
got about
deck.
3/4 of an inch.
Right. So the taller the deck gets, you're just adding deck thickness to it. So if you go to a
You can go
9.7
from like
deck,
9.2 to 10.3.
or this is a 9.7 casting. So to do the 10.2 or even taller casting, what we do is we start off and weld these up, machine the block flat, we put the plate on it, and then we put the sleeves all the way through. And normally when we're doing that, it's usually a dry deck block anyhow, so we're actually passing the water from the block to the heads with an external hose, so there's no water that goes through the head gasket face, because it's usually like on a boosted application or something like that.
Well, I know you don't like this question because you think it's not a fair question. But approximately how much power can it take?
We've had a customer put...
Safely, we'll put that way.
We've had a customer put 3,000 continuous to it.
And it lived.
And it lived.
That's important. It lived.
Yeah. So we'll figure out, we're gonna probably, in our car this year, we'll be pretty close to that when we lean on it pretty hard. Now we do offer this in a solid version without water jacket. And the one customer that we actually had, we've actually made a little bit of improvement to the block since then, in that when we did, his was an earlier block that had the cam in a standard location, so now the cam is actually raised up a bit. With raising the cam a bit, we can actually put longer bolts into the bottom of the bore, and it actually puts a little bit more material between the bottoms of the cylinders. So when blocks typically crack, of all brands or whatever, they typically crack right around this area.
Yeah.
So what we've done by raising the cam, it actually puts more material in this area right here that's actually pretty critical for the bottom of the block.
Yeah, so I'm assuming too, you got the thicker webbing, and what size bolts are you running on the?
It's still a half-inch bolt, but what we've done is
Blade caps.
is over a standard on all of them. Yep. And a standard Cleveland, the bolts are wider. So what we've done is we've brought these bolts in a little bit narrower, and by bringing them narrower, we can actually bring this bolt and make this bolt have a longer engagement, because the further you move this bolt out, the thinner the block is here. So we've brought these in, which puts more clamping force closer to the center of the main, which keeps everything tight right here.
Yeah.
Allows less main cap flex. We do run a very wide main cap, so the main cap is about as wide as you can put between the cheeks of the crank. And then these outer bolts, as they're splayed 15 degrees, and we've got the cap pretty much as wide as we can make it to put as much bridging across the bottom of the block.
I guess you got they're dialed and registered also?
We don't actually dowel the caps. We actually register these in here. I mean, we can machine a block for. Yeah, what we did is we made this the register on the block about 75 thousandths more register than what a stock block is. But I've thought about different kind of ways to maybe do a dowel. But it's the manufacturing process of making the cap and making the dowel and everything align and making that happen perfectly every time. You can do it like on a kind of a one-on-one basis, but doing it for
Like a
a production thing is yeah, and you know, not every block I don't think actually really needs that, but so far we haven't seen any variations of catwalk or anything like that on them because the cap is very stout. So.
And the oiling system is tied in there in the primary main?
Oiling system is priority main. When it comes through here, this one is not drilled through yet because we haven't decided what kind of oil pump we're going to run on this. If it's going to be wet sump or dry sump.
That's what somebody has too. You have to dry sump provision.
Yep, we have dry sump provision. But it is priority main in that we have added a third oil galley. So a Cleveland only has these two oil galleys. So we've added a third oil galley here, which feeds all the main bearings first, and then everything crosses over to the back of the block through here, and through a provision that comes down through where the original sending unit would be, so that crosses over. So we get oil to all the mains, then it crosses over and feeds the two water galleys from back to front.
And looks like a really convenient way to put a rear main seal in this.
It is. It uses a one-piece rear seal, which is usually pretty foolproof.
Your core plugs.
Core plugs in these are all. They are made by a company called Zero Leak. And what it is, it's a O-ring style plug, and it doesn't really 100% seal down and crush the O-ring. There's also a machine register inside of here. So there's a taper and then another taper. And the cap will actually go down, or the plug will go down and bottom out metal to metal, which forms a taper seal on metal to metal as it squishes the O-ring a little bit. So when you tighten it down, you're not just squishing the O-ring and killing
have that blow out.
Right, kill the O-ring.
Where's that leak come from?
Exactly right. There it is. There we go. We can turn him around here. Got some rust from sitting around and sweating.
Yeah. It happens. Luckily it comes out.
That's the star of the show.
So this is how we start out with a raw casting, and pretty much this as machines everything around. It roughs the bores in, roughs the decks in. It will do the pan rails, and right now we don't even have anything on to turn it around. I was going to say I could spin it around, but since everything is pretty much shut down here, it must be on a Sunday. But yeah, so everything around the block, this rotates this way, so everything around the block that we can machine in this stance is machined in this machine. And this, like I say, this is a really big spindle. This has got a 50 taper in it, so this machine will cut a lot of material in a short period of time to really hog something out.
You can see all the chunks.
Yeah. We fill up
It throws some chunks.
it takes when we do about three blocks in here, there's enough chips that come out of this machine to fill a 55-gallon drum. Each block will do about a third of a 55-gallon drum. So 3 blocks, we filled a drum full of chips just in this machine alone. But then after we machine the block to this point where it's got the main cap registers and everything in it, it's drilled and tapped for the main caps. We've put a small hole in for the lifters to rough the lifters and everything in. The block will pretty much look like this. And in this point here, the next thing that we're doing is you can see the ends aren't machined. The cam is not finished. Crank is not finished, but we do have our oil holes and everything for the cam and the main feeds. So the next thing that would happen with this is we fit the block with the main caps. So main caps, as you can see, those are filled this basket already. So pretty much what we do is we come over here where we've got stock of main caps. These are our number 1 and 5 caps here. These are our number 2 and 4 caps here because they're the same. And then our thrust cap is just like a 2 and 4, but it's machined for the thrust.
For the thrust, yeah.
And also a Cleveland, the tang is in a different position on the thrust than it is on the 2 and 4 cap. So at that, and then this is the seal retainer that goes in the back. So our rear cap is really a combination of a 1 cap and a seal retainer, which makes now the rear main cap.
Which again makes your life easier if you have to change the seal.
Well, it does make the block a little bit lighter, and also now because it makes us be able to where we can now machine a main cap number 1 and number 5 with the same main cap while we're machining it, with the addition of
drilling the holes,
putting that in, and then when the block goes in to bore the cam and the crank, it all gets bored at the same time, so that seal retainer gets bored. But this is the next operation where it would go. Once we put the main caps on the block goes in sitting horizontal, goes back into the machine. So these 2 pallets, the block that's in there right now would come out into here, and the block that we're setting up here would go into the machine. And when the block is in the machine, then the ends get machined, the front, the back, the oil holes that get drilled front to rear of the block, and also the cam and the crank tunnel get machined at that same point in time. So that way your front dowel pins that locate the timing cover, which then locates the front seal, and the dowel pins on the back of the block, which locate your bell housing, are all machined at the same time as what the crankshaft is. So that way we know the crankshaft is in on with all the dowel pins that are critical to front seal, back seal, and bell housing. And once the block then is pretty much comes out of the machine there, front, back, everything machined, at that point the block is really about 70 to 75% machined. And then we don't really have any of the customer ordered options put on the block. That's when, now what we do is we'll take the block over to the line hone, and we finish hone the mains, we finish hone the cam tunnel, and then the block comes back into this last one. So this machine, this one is actually really bigger than it needs to be to do a block, but we needed the Z height. So this machine is the next series high, which actually has a little bit more Z height. And as you see right now, we have a stock block in there right now, which was getting the lifter bores bored. But on our blocks, when the block comes back from a line hone and the cam, we mount the block in the machine, and it's mounted by the main bearings on this bar. Every time that the block goes in the machine, what it does is we have a program that uses this probe, and the probe will come down and it centers the bar where the bar is running through. It actually centers the bar this way, and this way. So that aligns the block in every time the machine gets a new block put in it. The machine actually aligns itself again, just in case anything gets bumped or it resets the machine zeros every time we put a block in the machine. So we really can't even start a program until
We zero it out.
the machine actually runs the program and zeros itself. And once that's done, then we can machine the block. We have the y-axis set this way. We have the z-axis because it comes down and touches the top of the bar and finds the true z height every time. And then what it uses is the dowel pin on the block here to get our x-axis. So that gives us all of our axes. And the other thing that it does, the program actually levels the block this way, so that then we know from our setup points of the previous machine, the setup point is the decks are at 45 degrees to the bottom of the pan rail, which is what they should be. And then the block gets bored, lifter bores get finished, so all the finishing operations get centered off of the main bearing. So pretty much like it eliminates your stack-up tolerances of things being off from the bore from one machine to
thousands
the
of
other.
thousands
Right,
of thousands.
right.
Next thing you know, the piston
You're-
hits the valve. And,
Right.
You know.
So yeah, what it does is it tries to get everything as in a precise manner as you can, to have the bores on the center of the mains, the lifters on the center of the cam. Everything is parallel with the main bearings front to back of the block. And at this point is when we also, if the customer wants a different diameter lifter, if they do order the block, like say finished bored, we'll go ahead and bore the block to size. Then it will go back to our cylinder hone and hone the block before it goes out. Otherwise, it goes out with our standard sizes, which is if it's a small bore block, it'll be a 3.990 bore. If it's a larger bore block, it'll be a 4115 bore. Sometimes we will bore them. If engine builders want to do their own final hone, we'll actually even bore it to where they can not have to rebore the block, like if they want to say a 4170 bore, for instance. We can go ahead and put it, if they wanted 5 underneath that to give them 5 to hone, we can bore it in the machine to that. But like I say, different size lifters, different lifter position angles we can do in here.
And making sure that they're true.
And they're true. And we can even move the lifters front to back a little bit if guys are moving their cam loads a little bit to straighten push rod angles and things like that. So it's not a cookie cutter, just order one, you get what you get. You can actually order what you want. So if you're in that part of the engine building realm where you're doing different custom stuff,
When your racing program goes to these levels,
you can really order what you
because
want.
that's something that's always overlooked is, again, how your lifter bore is in conjunction with your cam load.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of stuff. I mean, back when we did pro stock truck engines, one of the things that we were doing in small blocks is we were moving lifter bores around and putting bigger diameter lifters in them and different size cam cores and things like that, because there's certain things you can do with different size components that gives you a small competitive edge. But when you add up all those small competitive edges, that's what separates the guys who run from the front of the pack and the middle of the pack and the back of the pack.
Yeah, that's by winning that race by 0.2 of a thousandth of a second.
Right.
You turn the light on.
Right.
By
I
0.2 of a thousandth, but you
when-
turn the light on.
In a pro stock world, you're hunting all year long for 5 horsepower. So when you can pick up 5 horsepower,
Oh, that's like a Christmas gift.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, so all those little tiny things that you can do, for straightening out lifter angles. We're doing a couple projects right now for some that are on blocks that aren't even our blocks for some customers that pretty exotic stuff where we're putting things and moving it and how we're doing it.
And we won't see that.
What's that?
Those blocks you won't see today.
No, we can't show those because
Yeah, there's always the machine shop. Don't look over them.
they hold that information quite tight to the chest, and I don't blame them because I
No.
would do the same thing. But we're happy enough that they let us,
Do
in
it.
to do it. So
They cracked the door open for you to see what they're
Exactly right. So
doing.
we're-
You know,
we
so
get
you're
the
like,
chance-
oh yeah, good idea.
right, we get a chance to see what they're doing, but we just, we're not seeing the end result, but at
Yeah.
least we see the path that they're starting to take. So, and then this machine, this little small machine, is full of chips. 'Cause I just got done running some stuff the other day. I just ran some simple stuff. These are actually thrust plates that we're making for. This is a standard Cleveland thrust plate. This is a thrust plate we do for a Windsor, and we make all our thrust plates out of billet rather than cast, because the original ones from Ford were cast. We actually had an order from Australia the other day because they had a particular need for us to customize the Windsor plates, which is something that we had done years ago on our Pro Stock truck engines for a roller cam bearing. Sometimes the front of the cam bearing protrudes out of the front of the block, so you have to put a relief in this plate for that bearing to be able to stick out, because if you jam the cam bearing in, then you can't get the distributor in it all the way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it becomes a problem.
yeah, it's a big problem when you have to run a distributor there. You can't. But this is where we make all our main caps, all our small parts and pieces. We make a lot of parts and pieces. We make a belt drive for our Cleveland block. This down here on this cart is
All the cap.
all the
material
cap material that we've got cut out here. We even do
and the
some
sealed-
Yep, seal retainers that were kind of scrapped out while we were doing them, so now I use them as spacers. But these are aluminum main cap material as well. This is actually the fixture for our Cleveland thrust plates, which is what this whole thing is full of. So these are the ones that go to our blocks. These are the Windsor ones that we actually made the other day with the relief and everything in them. And this stainless steel header flanges. So we make stainless steel header flanges, and we can make them whatever size. And these are actually cut down so that we have a step in there for when we build the header. We can actually drive the header in there, the tube in there, and it actually sticks in there while you're fabbing your header up, so it's not falling off
so
the
you're
engine.
you don't have the wiggle.
Right, you don't
I
have
thought
all
I
that.
had it straight when I
Right.
whacked it with the.
And then we can go back in and cut really what we want to do to the port. So just odds and ends that we end up making. We like making kind of weird stuff and low production stuff. We're not trying to make a million of one style part. For doing small parts, like say this is a thrust plate that we made for a customer. We normally make these, keep them in stock, but we just made a batch of them for a customer in Australia. Stainless steel header flanges. We put a relief in here so that you can pretty much press the tube in, and it holds the tube while you're trying to make the header. But these are all 3/8 thick stainless. We
This
can,
way, when you tack, we cannot actually move.
yeah, and you don't have a gap or anything like that. But we can make these in 1/2 inch, 3/8 or whatever. These are actually going to go on my car.
Yeah, we want to see it.
Yep, we can definitely look at that. But
So you don't just make Cleveland stuff. You're also an engine shop, a machine shop.
yeah, we can
You have a
pretty
chassis
much.
dyno, an engine dyno.
We have too many toys, actually. Too many toys, not enough time. But yeah, we can
funny how that works.
we can pretty much make about anything. We like making some of these small parts because naturally not everybody can buy our block. But there's always a need for small parts, and if anybody actually really has need for small parts,
That's good to know, because sometimes
give us a call or drop it in your comments or whatever. If there's ideas of, hey, this could be really cool if we had this. And like I said, we don't have to make a million of them.
And-
Granted, the more you make, the better off it is. But
Yeah.
like thrust plates, probably most people don't even know we make that style thrust plate for the Windsor.
Well, it's good to know that, because it's like when we were building our dragster, like we had this piece for our center section for the rear, and it's like they changed the style of the rear, so we couldn't get that exact piece, and we kept getting them sent the wrong thing, and it's like, how do we get this so we don't have to buy a whole new center section? And we could have just went to you.
Just make it. It's like,
Could
I
have just
don't
went to
have a
you.
mill. I don't
Been
have a
been
mill,
there,
you
been
know?
there, done that. I mean, we even make weird stuff to do tooling, like when we install different more bushings and things like that in the block. We actually make all the tooling to be able to put the lifters in the CNC, because we actually use the CNC to orient when we use like a keyway lifter or a wheel guided lifter. We actually use the CNC to orient the bushing so that we know the wheels now turn true to the camshaft and they're not cocked or anything like that. So, you know, we made the tooling all to do that, but it's, sometimes you just have the need to make something weird that's, you just can't buy. And you can't buy that tool. You have to
Yeah.
figure out how to do it. And, you know, I think there's, you can make the tool and do it by hand, but they're already boring the block and everything in the CNC, so why not use that at the same time?
Yeah.
And it's probably more accurate anyhow, so.
Go.
So you make your own cylinder heads too, right?
Yeah, we're kind of new in the cylinder heads. We've been doing this for a bit, but we haven't been really advertising our cylinder heads because we're still figuring out our production methods in order to be able to make them quicker. So we don't want to have more people calling than what we can make. So we're trying to control that a little bit. But right now, I think we've pretty much got it figured out to where pretty much you can go over here and hit the green button and make a cylinder head now. But yeah, this is our casting of what it looks like when we get our casting from the foundry. And these are actually chopped off at the foundry. These are some pretty long, what they call risers. And what that riser does is when they pour the material, the head is like this, when they pour the material, they use these risers as a weight, because as the aluminum solidifies from liquid to solid, it shrinks slightly. So that weight actually pushes down and actually keeps the mold filled. So they chop them off, and then of course we have to machine them off, and then it adds more to our barrel of chips. But yeah, so this is the machine where we make the cylinder heads. So there's one in process right now where we're that's the second step of it. The first step when we make the cylinder head is the head is turned around facing, and it cuts this. It's actually, sorry, it's facing this. The deck side of it is actually facing here, and what we machine is the head bolt holes and the registers to be able to locate the cylinder head. So at that point, it also puts the intake head bolt holes in it, the exhaust bolt holes. Pretty much puts all the bolt holes and everything all the way around, and now it's mounted by the intake face, so it's actually doing the valve guides. Everything kind of cocks and goes back and forth. So we do the valve guides since it's a cannon valve head. Does the rocker studs. So it looks like the next operation we've got to do is put the intake studs in this one, and then it'll turn around and it'll do the chambers and the valve seats. But then the last thing they'll do is it'll go over to the other machine side part of it, where we'll put the guides and the seats and everything in the cylinder head. And then it'll be ready to run.
Very raised.
My mom thought it was a big blockhead when she first saw it.
You got a very raised port and very small combustion.
Well, it's a funny story because our youngest daughter, we call her Big Head because she has a pretty good sized nugget. So at least we tease her that anyhow. So we had no idea what to call this cylinder head, so we called it the Big Head. So and it's funny that you say it's a big head. So
Every time we show a video of the heads, I look at this.
well, at the foundry, when we have to put a purchase order in the foundry, we have to call the part by what it's called, and it's called Big Head. And they always ask us, "Is that? You sure that's what you're going to name this?" I'm like, well, we don't know of anything else to name it just yet. So
You're not going to forget that
but
name, that's for
we're
sure.
going to go with that for now. But what we're doing with this cylinder head is, I felt that there's in the Cleveland world at least, that there's kind of a hole in the market. And let me get over here for you. I think there's a bit of a hole in the market in that there are stock replacement heads that are a little bit shorter, and the port is way down here, about down here. So what we wanted to do is kind of fill that void where you have the stock replacement, fits stock manifold, everything, to the all-out race head, which I think Edelbrock makes one, the SC1, which we actually have a set of those on our race car.
Which is pretty much you do finish the machine work.
pretty much is, yeah, when you get
Kinda
it,
looks like
it's
that.
got a port in it about as big as you can put your thumb in. It's about as big. So it's called a porter's head. So you have to make a head out of pretty much the outside that looks like a head, and then you put the insides in. But what we're doing is between the Elderbrock head, which that port would be like, you know, up here, we're about halfway in between. So for the guy who doesn't need, you know, the real big giant head, but wants to be a little bit more than the average, you know, catalog bolt-on head, we do have a significant raise on the port, which have been mocking up with a bunch of different manifolds. And the reason we can do that is because we've made this intake manifold thicker. Excuse me, the intake manifold side we've extended out. So as you extend the manifold in, or make the head taller, your V gets wider. But what we've done, we've brought that V back in to try to fit some of these more standard manifolds that are already available. But our next project, which, you know, we've got nothing to do around here, we're not busy at all. Yeah, we're really bored. Is a manifold, actually two manifolds we're looking to do in the works. One is going to...
You try to find a 9-2 that manifolds in it.
Yeah, it's basically impossible. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a casting that will actually fit some of the other cylinder heads that are out there that are void of a manifold now, and fit our head as well, because then we're going to make the casting room to machine it either or. So it won't be naturally a replacement that you can just bolt on here, there, but with the casting we'll be able to machine to be able to be specific. But we are going to have one that's primarily a spider type manifold, which is, you know, a single plane high-rise manifold, and we are going to do one with a more geared toward fuel injection in the modern market. So it will have a different style throttle body. Everything's not going to be pointing upwards; it's going to be pointing forward, so that you can put it underneath the hood for power adders and things like that. So that way you eliminate the big elbow on top of a spider type manifold.
And your chambers, I guess you can get them basically any way you want. You can come in so raw.
Yeah, the chamber in the head is very, very small. I mean, it's sort of like a, you know, for lack of a better term, a Yates style chamber. You know, it's very small, heart shaped, very efficient, and we can make that very small, or we can make it very, very big. This head actually has an inch thick deck, so we can machine into this deck. And we can actually shorten this head, so we can effectively raise and lower the runner height just by machining more off the bottom of this
because
casting.
you got so much material.
Because we have so much
And
material.
again, that
on the
would be great for boosted operation.
yeah, I don't think you're going to warp an inch deck. If you do, you've done
got a
something
serious problem.
right. You've done something you probably shouldn't have been doing. So,
And this is great for middle of the road people. Like,
I guess on the high side
Yeah.
of the middle of the road.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
the
you
higher
can
side,
put
but-
this on a you know, my street car is a 71 Mach 1 with a 351 Cleveland engine in it. I mean, I could put this head right on there, and it would be happy to run on the street. Or if you want to make, you know, 50 pounds of boost and make 3,000 horsepower, I'd be happy doing that as well.
so it's a very
And you still have a lot of
versatile
material.
head.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do is make a cylinder head that, like we did with our block. I mean, that's one of the things when I designed the block 13 years ago now. We tried to make it as versatile as possible. I used pretty much every manufacturer's block on the market, and there was some things I liked about block A and some things I liked about block B, and as an engine builder, there was some things I wished either one of them had. So what we tried to do is incorporate as much of that into the block as we could to make it as versatile as we could. So that's why we can give the customer now the option in order to order their block the way they want it. So if they want, you know, lifter bores here, there, whatever, the bores, big, small, decks, high and short, we can actually accommodate that out of all of one casting. It does require more machining on our part because we're not trying
Made to order.
Well, yeah, because what we're doing is normally a production style block that is made mass produced, made the same way all the time, is they try to take the casting and make the casting as close to usable as possible. That way they don't have to machine as much material off of it. Less machine time means they can sell the block a little cheaper. So we do require more machine time because we have to machine all of our main webs, all of our, clearance, the crankcase, and all that sort of stuff. But it does give us a casting that fits a lot more things. We just have to machine it to that purpose. So it does hinder us a little tiny bit because it requires more machine time, but it does put us in a different place than anybody else in the market.
And again, when your racing program starts to come up these levels, when you get past the catalog stuff.
You want options.
Yeah. And if winning is your goal, ultimate goal.
Nothing else, we have options.
Yeah. So your heads too, like basically, don't want to really discuss float numbers yet, but I'm assuming that your low level lift numbers are going to be quite high with that race board.
Oh yeah. The port flow, we actually modeled the port. Designed the casting off of 3 different port models, so that we knew that we could put 3 different port models in that same casting. And the biggest one that we did, that head would flow right about 450, 455 at an inch lift. So,
And this could take an inch lift, no problem.
no problem. And we're actually doing a little bit different rocker arm setup with this. We're going to do some of our, we've been working with a rocker arm manufacturer, shaft mount rocker system now, and we do this system with a stud mount, so you'll be able to use your stud mount rockers and things like that.
I'd like to say, go with the shaft.
Shaft rocker is where I would prefer everybody to be, but not everybody has that budget to do that. So we kind of have to give, I don't want to.
Just think
Little
of it.
grates.
But just think of it this way: roller rocker, studs, poly locks that are extended, and a girdle because you can spin these things.
Oh yeah.
By the time you get done doing that, you're
You're
basically going to
real,
be
real close.
you're really close to
And
the
what
shaft.
we're doing is, one thing that we are doing is we're actually trying to make a little bit more cost-effective shaft rocker, since we're going to make the rocker stands. We have a manufacturer making the rocker for us, but we're going to purchase the rockers, and then we're going to make the stands and make the kit. But yeah, the shaft rocker, I mean, if you look at the shaft rocker that we're using, our rocker from center of pivot to the tip of the roller that goes on the valve is right at 300 thousandths longer. And when you start laying out the arc circle and everything, when you do put something that's 800, 900 inch, 11, 1200 lift, you get a lot less stroke across the top of that valve with the longer your rocker is. So that's one of the things that we want to do is, guys, the benefit of the technology of being able to use a valve train is going to be much more stable, because you're not trying to pull the valve stem in and out. Because the more lift you have, the more guide,
pushing on the guide.
Right, the more you're pushing on the guide, and the more valve you have to have sticking out of the guide on top. And we also like small stem valves. So, I mean, we've run some of our stuff in our naturally aspirated. We don't do it in our boosted stuff, but our naturally aspirated stuff, we ran a 200-300 valve with 7mm stem. That's only 275,000 stem. And when you look at the valve stem, you look at it and you go, wow.
Yeah,
I'm almost afraid to put that in the
I'm
engine.
not saying anything about 7mm valves right now,
But we're designing this. We actually designed this around a 5/16 stem, so it makes a lighter valve. So we can put a stainless valve in it that's even lighter.
Yeah,
and the
that's
valve
available.
train.
That's probably available without going into custom stock.
Well, it'll be custom to us, but it won't be custom to the customer, because we're going
to the
to
valve manufacturer.
Right, we're working with the valve manufacturer where we have this stuff sitting on the shelf waiting for, orders and cylinder heads, but there is no valve right now sitting on the shelf waiting for this hit, so we actually have to, we're working with a company you're probably pretty familiar with close to your home in New Jersey that's making our valve for us.
Yeah.
Oh, we know him pretty well.
Yeah, just say hi. Yeah, just say hi.
Wink,
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
So yeah,
So,
we'll be seeing you in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
actually, probably
Yeah,
tomorrow.
we didn't break nothing.
By the time
yet.
you see this, it's in the past.
Yeah, we didn't break nothing.
So you're producing cylinder heads. You got intake manifolds in the work. You have blocks ready to go.
Mhm.
The block can go out. It's like 500 cubic inches too.
We've built our engine off of that block at 9.7 deck, which was 500 inches. We actually had a customer build one that was 510 inches because he wanted to have the biggest one. So that one right now that we know is, and that was a 9.7 deck as well. So that one.
So somebody's got to beat that,
Right, so
510.
510. Well, with what we did with our race car, you can definitely make it bigger than that now. Now ours is not that big in the race car because it's still a 4.5-inch stroke. So that's an inch longer stroke than a standard Cleveland. But we didn't go giant on the bore size because to me the cylinder, the head gasket between
Gets
the
a little bit
bores
thin.
gets a little bit thin, and with that much boost and with that much power and that much pressure, I would rather run 2 or 3 more pounds of boost than 6 more cubic inches.
Plus too, with at least being the cannon valve head, you're opening up the valve towards the inside of the
Away
cylinder,
from the
other
cylinder.
than a wedge, where like in our
Right.
case, we need that big bore
You
to
have what you
eliminate
have.
the shrouding, you know, so
Right.
it is what it is.
That's exactly right. And the other thing that's that we can do with our cylinder head is, because we're not, making 1,000 of these things to sit in the catalog, is if a guy is going to run, again, designing his block or whatever, he knows he's going to run something that's like 4,185 bore, 4,200 bore, he's going to want to run a little bit bigger intake valve. Most of the time what happens with the standard heads that are on the shelf is the valves are close together to where if you put too big of a valve in it, too big of an intake, too big of an exhaust, they run into each other. Well, because we don't make these things mass produced, we can spread those things out a little bit. We can actually rotate them in the cylinder. There's enough material in here. We can actually rotate the cylinder. There's a bunch that we can do with this just by adding a different program in the machine. So all that stuff got laid out ahead of time so that when we made the casting, we'd have that flexibility when we do it.
And your exhaust port, I know we seem like we're kind of ignoring that. That also looks like it's a little bit on the raised sides too.
It's a little bit raised, but it's not
Not
raised crazy so that you can
So
still.
at least you can get a header in it, like kind of more or less on the off the shelf.
Yes.
And like, is that going to be like a Yates style?
We can actually do the bolt pattern in a Yates bolt pattern or a standard Cleveland bolt pattern, depending upon whatever the customer
Customer
wants.
wants. So you're not locked down with
Right.
the Yates.
Yeah, so like the SC1 Edelbrock
Or like if you
had the
just want
Yates
a normal
pattern.
70, I'm just putting these in my 71 Mach 1.
I can put that bolt pattern right on it.
Just, you know,
Yep, I can put that bolt
That's
pattern on it.
convenient.
And our head is also has the ability to put the 18
put the extra bolts.
the extra bolt holes in it. But if you don't want those, we can cut them off. It's no problem. I'm not going to run in any water or anything like that by just milling those off.
So a lot of options.
Like I say, nothing else. We got a lot of options. So, but yeah, valve train wise, we're just trying to cover all the bases of trying to make this thing as user friendly to whoever has whatever idea they want to build. Because there's so many ideas that people have they want to build, but a lot of times you can't build it because you can't. You got to start with whatever part you can get. So you have the
Like
option.
I don't know, I just still leave them RPM. I just like the way they sound when you're screaming.
Well,
Don't like the way they sound when they're grenading. But I like the way they
No,
sound
no.
when they're
But when at a certain RPM level, when you're in the car, especially like in a stick shift car, because we raced a lot of stick shift stuff.
It's funny how that torque converter
There-
just like changed the tone.
But there's a point at which it gets really quiet in the car. It actually the engine noise goes away and it becomes almost just like a white noise.
It's kind of like
Yeah.
It's like
behind
Ford
you.
versus Ferrari when
Yeah.
they made that quote, 7,000 RPM. And
Everything changes at a certain
It's
point.
like the noise gets behind you.
Yeah.
You're like so far, you're like becoming like a heavier
Yeah.
sound, because like I've noticed that quite a few times on my motorcycle. Like when I get, I'm not going to say with speeds, but there's just a time where like it's like you don't hear the bike no more.
No, it's almost like it's just one noise. It's not like
Yeah.
you hear the rhythmic part
Yeah.
of the engine. It's almost just becomes one. It's a pretty cool sound.
Yeah, I know. You get addicted to it.
This is where this is the bandsaw we use to when raw stock comes in to make header flanges, thrust plates, main caps or whatever. We buy bar stock, and as the bar stock comes in, it usually comes in like 12-foot lengths or sometimes 20-foot lengths. We chunk it up into pieces that we pre-cut it to be able to go into the CNC, and so that's where all the parts and pieces actually start out as. So really what this car is a all steel, all glass, or ASAG car. So this is a back half car. It does have functioning roll electric windows. In the class that we run, at least here at our local class, we have to have interior, finished looking interior, so the car doesn't have the dash in it right now, but we have to have finished interior back to the back of the driver door. So it has to have carpet, has to have a dash, has to have 2 seats actually, so it doesn't have the passenger seat in it right now, because right now the car is being converted over to fuel injection. It used to be a big block nitrous car, and now it's going to be pro-charged with fuel injection. So we're putting a fuel tech system in it right now. But this is one of our blocks with a set of Edelbrock heads
You
on
can
it.
see the difference in the size.
And
Yeah.
and this is what we're this is, you can see how tall this cylinder head here is. So that's where we're sort of in between this head and a standard Cleveland head. That's what we're at with our cylinder head. So as you can see, we got a Pro Charger. So this one's a crank driven Pro Charger. We're going to use a 121 Pro Charger on this because I think that's really about, we don't need a 136 or anything on this because we really don't want to, we're not going to be racing in anywhere where we're going to really need that. So this is a dry sump system that runs off the Pro Charger. Here's the fuel pump in the front. So this is the dry sump tank. We run a filter primer system from Peterson. Fuel system up here. This is a water block, so the radiator is actually underneath the car in the back. So you see these
That's
cross.
a good place to put it.
Well, yeah,
You
well,
know,
it's-
so
I don't
this way
have-
you don't water down the tires.
Well,
You got all
exactly,
that.
and I don't have any.
Yeah.
When I go to work on the car, we just take this front end off, and
It's
the
not
engine's,
done super
the engine's
often.
right there. But so these are the crossover lines that cross from the block to the head, and naturally there's a pair in the back of the engine that do the same thing. So it's a dry deck engine, so there's no cross between the head and the block of water except through these hoses.
What fuel do you plan on running with this?
This
It's gonna be gas and
no, this will be all forms of alcohol. So one of our classes that we run here at our local track, or going to run with our local track, because we've never run this particular class, we have to run ethanol. Not allowed, no methanol allowed. But other tracks, if we go across the bridge into Virginia, we can run methanol. They even have a class we can run. Right now the car has a 275 radio on it. We can run a 315 over there. So I don't know, maybe that might require a 136 blower on that. But yeah, so this is going to be our
ASAG.
ASAG car for this year. We plan on just, we're not like trying to chase anything in particular. We just want to go to a bunch of different places and race and
well, MIR does have that nice Ford.
MIR does have a nice Ford race at the end of the year, so hopefully we'll be able to race that.
They got that Warrior class too.
Yeah.
Warriors is a good class. I don't know if we're quite fast enough for that because they really
They're
don't have a ASAG class for that, because this car, I mean, it's not a featherweight, so because it is a real car, so it's not a full tube chassis car or something like that. And it does have real glass, and it's got real side windows and everything in it.
It's
So
convenient. Just press the button. Get the
Yeah,
fire
it's-
switch.
That's my favorite. When I drop the window net, I press my window and it rolls
Not
down.
like you get into that little
When-
tube
when
and you cut the Lexa
in Maryland, it is very hot, very humid in the summertime. And when you sit in the car, they tell you to strap in, and then somebody oils the track, but you don't know whether to get out of the
Been
car.
there,
whether-
done that, yeah. Oh
You
yeah, it's only
sit there
15
and-
minutes, an hour and a half.
Right,
later,
and
all
you're sitting in the
strapped in.
car you're all strapped in with the windows won't roll down. Even when the windows do roll down, it's quite uncomfortable, but
It's a little bit of comfort.
It's-
At least mentally, it's
Yeah.
a little bit of comfort.
That's where the smart car with the tow, as a tow vehicle, really comes in handy. Just put the driver in the smart car with the AC on.
well, unfortunately, they don't allow us to tow or push
We're not
to the lanes.
supposed to either.
So we have to drive this to the lanes. Our basic rules are here at the local track are we have to have an alternator on it and a radiator. That determines it's a street car. So I haven't found a place yet to put my alternator. I gotta find a place to put an alternator on it just yet, but it
When
does
you're
have a
creative,
radiator.
you'll find it.
Well,
I'd put it in the trunk.
the rule doesn't say it had to work, so.
Yeah.
It just said it has to have an
Hey.
alternator, so.
Been there, done that with mufflers.
We've been there.
Oh.
We've been there. We got a funny story about that, so.
Yeah, so
You
it's,
gotta really read the rule book.
yeah, it doesn't say it has to be functioning alternator, it just says it has to have an alternator on it, so it might
Now
just
that you
get,
just gave them a clue. It's gonna be-
well, yeah, hopefully that don't get,
Well,
bite me.
hopefully we won't get that many videos.
Hopefully that won't bite me by the time it's time to go racing, but we still got to build headers for this yet. So we've got all the header materials. I showed you the flanges over there that we need for it, so. That's one of the things I don't know, I don't specifically enjoy making headers
I was
just
gonna
because
say, are
it's.
you gonna make your own?
Well, that's a story for another
It's a funny
time.
thing, like with headers, every time I look at them and go, man, I'd really like to make a set. And I'm like, you know what, maybe not.
I've made several sets for myself, I've made several sets for customers, but it's one of those things, it's like, it's a very tedious process, and it's like, I always feel like I'm not getting it done fast enough, so it's, you know, cause you wanna get them, you want them to look right, you
Yeah,
want them to
and
weld
you,
to
and you
look
think you
good.
got it, then you put that last pipe in, you're like,
Yeah, and it's
whoops,
just,
I messed
it's
up.
just one of them things that, you know, but that's all about building the whole car. You always, after you build a car, you always have things that look at it and go, man, I wish I'd done this
Yeah.
this way, but.
Or like, this
Change
would be
it
a nice
next
header
time.
if it was a 6-cylinder, you know, like,
Yeah, that would be nice, but, yeah, so this will be, what we're going to try to go have a little bit of fun with, and we got another car over there that's even another whole project that one is going to get, it's another SN95. We have all the parts and pieces, but no time.
We know, we
funny how
know.
that works.
So
It's
that,
my Camaro.
that one is gonna be something that is gonna be this car is really high maintenance because it requires a lot to go run something, what this is capable of running.
This will be your play car.
This is what we wanna be able to take and, you know, hit the button, fire it up, put it in the trailer, go racing, bring it home, put it in the shop and
don't look at it.
don't look at it
Yeah.
till it's time to go racing again, so. And this is pretty much gonna be our test bed for when we make new stuff. Even when we do, you know, some more R&D work on our cylinder heads. Yeah, so we can change cylinder heads on it, see if we, you know, made an improvement or if we didn't make an improvement. Test new things out with our block, parts and pieces that we make, so it'll be pretty fun. I originally even thought maybe doing some drag and drive stuff with this one. So I originally built this car many years ago for drag and drive. As you see, it doesn't have a funny car cage in it, so I was going to run the 850 class, which you're not allowed to have a funny car cage in the 850 class. So who knows
Well,
where
it's better yet too not having that, because, you know, a lot of people don't consider when you do have all those bars in there and you are on the road and if somebody gonna
Yeah.
shoot you.
Yeah.
And your head hits that roll bar.
Yeah.
That's
you know?
something I never thought about until we heard a story about it where just was driving
Yeah,
one
you-
day
you
and
get
he just
rattled
got
around.
tapped.
Yeah,
and-
2 days later, the guy died because his brain swelled up.
Yeah. But yeah,
You know, he's hitting, matter of fact, he's sitting in Washington DC.
wow.
That's why we have all the roll bar padding.
Yeah.
That's
But
why
still,
Nature,
you know,
it
like,
really
it's just like, he goes,
enforces
he just
it
got
around
tapped in the
wherever
rear
you're
and his head
contact.
hit the bar and he didn't think
So
about
yeah,
nothing.
you
and his brain
don't
swelled
have a
up.
helmet on while you're doing that, usually going down the road in the drag and drive, but that's something we wanted to, I thought it'd be pretty neat, and it seems to be a growing thing, the drag and drive.
Yeah, like drag
yeah.
week, sick week.
Sick week and drag, yeah, that seems to be.
Well, again, it is kind of neat, you know, like this, you know, like this
See
is a
that stuff on the
street car,
street.
you know? It's a street car.
Well, I
you know, because
think-
that's what everybody, you know, I mean, back then, I mean, like when I started, you didn't have, if you had like the so-called like street car, it had a tunnel ram on it, you know? Now look at it, you know?
Well, it can be, it looks like it'd be a lot of fun. It looks like it could be pretty torturous too, depending upon how fast you decide to go.
Well, I guess it's like if you were like a cross-country runner in high school, it's like it's just somebody that knows how to endure a little bit of pain.
Well,
you know?
the painful thing is would be convincing my wife that we're gonna need to take a week's vacation to go sit in a hot race car for 1,000 miles.
Ain't gonna happen.
That might be the most painful
Well,
thing. so.
well,
But
school's
think
not
about the
on, you can take- yeah,
business. You
yeah.
could YouTube it. You could
That's-
vlog
that's-
it.
that's
The
my point.
ROI.
My point exactly.
Well, she's not doing
Exactly.
summer school.
I might.
She likes the heat, so.
My point exactly. It's all about, you know, growing the business. So
Yeah.
But